Arizona abortion law that's about to go into effect bans all abortions in the state after 15 weeks. It's very similar to the Mississippi law at the center of this Supreme Court case, but now with this decision coming down, Arizona lawmakers could look to restrict abortions even further or outlaw them altogether. Friday's historic Supreme Court decision removes federal protections for abortion rights and leaves it up to individual states to decide. Arizona legislators from both sides of the aisle reacted to the news.
I believe this is a correct move by the Supreme Court to put it back in the hands of a state government and to help protect life.
State Representative Paul Gosar, who represents part of Yuma, also adding, there is nothing in the Constitution that provides the right to have an abortion. Local Democratic Congressman Raul Grijalva taking a different stance, saying in part, today the far-right Supreme Court majority voted to strike down Roe v. Wade and overturn nearly 50 years of precedent that guarantees safe and legal abortions despite Americans' broad support for abortion rights. But now Arizona lawmakers could take existing state abortion law a step further, something Representative Tim Dunn could potentially support.
15 weeks is one of the terms that people have used. I would be in favor of making it tighter.
Dunn says he does not expect the legislature to introduce an abortion bill that would go beyond the 15-week ban passed in March this legislative session. Reporting in Yuma, Adam Clapp, News 11.